it were possible to see all of the world in one country, then it would be here in this land of rich and startling variety. A land of subtropical native forests, of volcanoes and steaming sulphur, of deep fjords on the edge of Antarctica, and soaring mountains that seem to pierce the sky. A young, free country of sport and adventure, where the air and water are as clear as crystal. This is the home of rare birds and animals. Plants and flowers seen nowhere else on the planet. A remote place untouched by the pressure of population and industry. A unique chance to experience nature as it was thousands of years ago. Welcome to New Zealand, Islands of Adventure. To travel further from the principal cities of Europe, Asia and America is virtually impossible. New Zealand sits to the east of Australia and north of the Great Polar Ice Cap. Its closest neighbouring city, Sydney, is as distant as London is from Moscow. The size of Britain, California or Japan, New Zealand enjoys warm summers and mild winters. The two islands support a population of only 3 million people, making New Zealand one of the least populated countries on Earth. Most people live on the North Island. Fewer than 1 million live on the south. The Maori people arrived here 1,000 years ago after a long journey by canoe from Polynesian islands in the mid and South Pacific Ocean. They christened this country Aotearoa, or Land of the Long White Cloud. The first European to discover New Zealand was a Dutchman, Abel Tasman. On December 13, 1642, 4 of the Dutch were killed in their first encounter between the Maori and the European. Tasman then left New Zealand with its new Dutch title, but nothing else. The British explorer James Cook arrived over a century later in 1769. In his ship Endeavour, he mapped the entire coast of New Zealand and led the way to European settlement. The first residents, though, were a rough and unruly collection of sailors, traders and whalers. Their first settlement was the town of Russell in the Bay of Islands. The missionaries who followed the whalers in the mid-1800s described Russell as the hell-hole of the Pacific. It is now a peaceful haven, still with some of New Zealand's oldest buildings. The buildings, which used to be grog shops and houses of ill repute for the first residents, are now respectable historic monuments. The local graveyard reads like an open history book, the stones recording the lives of those who travelled halfway around the world to find a new life. The stones also point to the next chapter of New Zealand's history, a time when European and Maori were split over the future of the country. Many Maoris wanted the Europeans to leave, but Chief Wakanene supported a new society based on the two cultures living in cooperation. He persuaded most of his people to sign the historic Treaty of Waitangi on February the 6th, 1840. Later, though, a series of violent land wars flared, and the British Army fought rebel Maori groups for over 20 years before achieving a military victory. The site at Waitangi, where the treaty was signed, is today a national monument and is regarded as the birthplace of modern New Zealand. The treaty laid the foundation for a multicultural society. There is little evidence of the turmoil in days gone by. The area is a peaceful marine reserve, a haven for wildlife and people seeking an escape from the bustle of modern society. There are 144 islands in the area, and water transport has become a way of life, as well as a form of recreation. The unpolluted waters teem with marine life. New Zealand has a 200-mile exclusive fishing zone, and as one of the country's main export earners, fishing is strictly controlled. the south of the Bay of Islands, the Waipua Forest is an area of protected woodland, of red beech and New Zealand's largest and most majestic tree, the kauri. The hard wood of the kauri was perfect for building, and the British Navy favoured kauri for ships' masts. Towards the end of the 1800s, the kauri was exported to such an extent that its very survival was threatened, and kauri logging was eventually banned in the 1940s. Moving south, the climate becomes temperate and the landscapes begin to change. This is limestone country and the site of a complex series of caves, grottos and underwater rivers. The Waitomo caves have become world famous because of the thousands of glowworms that cling to the walls and roof. Each tiny animal hangs down thread which acts as fishing line to attract food. Small boats travel deep into the cave system through river grottos where the glowworms are the only source of light. The glowworms shine in this state for 3 or 4 months before turning into an adult flying insect. They then live for just 1 day, unable to eat or see, but able to mate and continue the cycle. To the east of the caves is a dramatic reminder that New Zealand sits on the edge of the Pacific Rim of Fire. The country around Rotorua is a confusion of geothermal activity. Each area has its own characteristic, its own mood. In Rotorua, boiling water, mud and steam force their way to the surface. The ground constantly rumbles as underground energy strains to release itself. Every hour or so, an unearthly growling and hissing sound precedes an explosion of steam and gas. Waiotapu is one of the most quiet, gentle and colourful areas, with silica and sulphur formations making the area a magnet for amateur and professional photographers. Now our travelling really begins as we head for Wellington. It's a long and tedious journey south through central North Island. Known as the desert, it's a vast plain bordered by mighty and still active volcanoes that make up Tongariro National Park. After an overnight stay halfway at Waiouru, we were up and away very early. By 9 o'clock, it was time for breakfast. The capital city, Wellington, lies at the southernmost tip of North Island. The city is headquarters of many major businesses and financial institutions. New Zealand is governed from two separate buildings, one old and one new. The old marble Parliament House dates from 1922 and sits alongside the 1981 extension known universally as the Beehive. Wellington was built on the spectacular harbour and is notorious for its unpredictable winds and occasional earth tremors. The stretch of water between North and South Islands is known as Cook Strait, a popular target for long-distance swimmers. Modern ships have turned the 3-hour ferry journey into more of a cruise than a crossing. The final part of the north to south trip snakes through the Marlborough Sound, a beautiful and complex series of inlets. The boat docks at Picton, and it was here we were to be reunited with our friends Sue and Des and meet their children who we had not met before, and also introduce them to Maggie and Tony. They live in Nelson, a 2-hour drive away. David had docked at Nelson during his Navy service over 30 years ago and couldn't wait to see if he could still remember anything from those days. Sue had bought the car we were to be using, while Des had bought his beloved Corvette. We rode with Sue, while David couldn't resist Des's powerful baby. Des led the way along the spectacular road through the mountains.
65 there, 75, 85.
Sue and Des have a lovely big house set on the hillside on the edge of town. It's basically 3 floors, the ground level being the garage and storage. Des had to have enough garage space to allow for his passion for motor cars. He has 4 there at the moment, his beloved Corvette, their runaround, and 2 Chevrolets in various stages of being rebuilt. Above the garage, the house is then 2-storey, with panoramic views across the green to the lake and beyond that to the sea. They are able to make good use of the green and the lake.
Dave thought he could launch it like that and jump in. He picked it up.
Bye, Dave. You're not getting in there, are you, Des?
Just let him go now,
Nelson is the geographical centre of the country. The sunniest city in New Zealand, it has a Mediterranean climate, protected from the worst of the prevailing winds by the surrounding mountain ranges. A popular seaside town, it is expanding rapidly. New developments are growing up the hillsides all around the old centre. Ever mindful of the earthquake danger, few buildings are made of brick. Preformed aluminium is the modern choice, as wood, so popular with previous generations, is too expensive these days. They have one other great advantage. When you want to move town, you don't have to change house. You pick up the house and take that too.